Welcome to QSecure Fireside Chats, a series of questions and answers interviews with QSecure employees. I'm Paul Fugner, QSecure's head of marketing and moderator of this series. Our goal with Fireside Chats is to export the human quotient of QSecure, what makes QSecure what it is, the vision, the mission, the values that define our company. We're an innovative organization, and our DNA consists of a wide variety of talented and diverse people and perspectives. Today, our guest is Pete Ford. Welcome to the show, Pete.
Thanks, Paul. Good to be here.
Great. Pete joins us from our office in Tucson, Arizona, and I'm based in our San Francisco office. We have a distributed workforce, so you'll find our employees all around the country. We are US based, so you'll see employees from as far away as Florida, as well as the West Coast and spots in between. So, Pete, tell us a little bit about your background and what you do at QSecure.
Pete Ford. I run our federal operations division. My background is my first foray into Silicon Valley and the wide world of software that we are. I came to QSecure from really a lifetime of service to our nation. Straight out of high school to the Air Force Academy, straight from there to flying jets, trying to light my hair on fire and go as fast as I could all over the planet, into Department of Energy, National Lab, a lot of work across Defense Department, Energy, National Nuclear, National Intel, obviously from there into the Defense Industrial Base as an executive across two different forays for about 6 years in Fortune 30 companies trying to meet our nation's needs security-wise. And I found QSecure.
Well, Pete, first off, thank you for your service. We really appreciate everything you and all of the other service people have done for our country. And one of the things that you said when you were chatting about your background there is the word security came up a lot. And the word security is clearly in our company's name. We are QSecure. Can you tell me a little bit about that word, security, what it means to you, and how it's influenced you throughout your professional career?
Sure. It's kind of, I don't know if I was dropped on my head or the years of boxing or getting beat up in a jet. Security to me is a little opposite, the other side of the coin from a lot of other humans. The adversary always has a vote, and I take that vote very seriously because a lot of men and women live in the secure environment and want it to be secure, and then they thrive in that. I want to make sure that they can thrive. I'm always looking for that opportunity to present the most offensive capability that will provide lethality for our nation to remain free, or looking for the best way to defend that freedom so that security environment that we thrive in maintains. So I prefer to think the years that I've had tend to make me a gatekeeper. So as a gatekeeper, you're looking out on the horizon, or a pathfinder, some people say. What can you do to look out, consider an adversary vote, and make sure you're putting and taking the right actions so that we keep that freedom, keep that national goal, whole of nation goal in the best light possible. So yeah, QSecure and the secure part of that is very important to me, to our federal ops team, and quite frankly, to the DNA that makes this company real, which is pretty fun.
Well put, very very well put, and thank you, Pete. And for those who don't know Pete, he has flown tens and tens of thousands of feet above the air and tens of thousands of miles for our country in the Air Force. He goes by the call sign Shadow, and I think well put. Like Maverick said in Top Gun, it's not the machine or the plane, it's the man, and it's the individual, the man or woman who is flying the plane that makes the difference. And speaking of the order of magnitude of how big this issue is, ironically, for those of you viewing, today happens to be June 6th, and June 6th is D-Day. And thank you for all of the service people who made sacrifices to get us where we ended up after D-Day. But there's another thing coming that we like to call Q-Day, and there's some similarities and some differences to what D-Day was and to what Q-Day are. Do you want to talk a little bit, Pete, about some of the similarities and differences on what D-Day represented, which was a known entity? We planned it on that day, versus Q Day, which has more question marks behind it, and we're not certain when that's going to happen. But do you see any parallels there between the two?
Wow, I love those questions. When our senior leaders, and I may be old, but I wasn't old enough to actually help plan D-Day. I get to see the results of it backwards, in spite of the fact that I probably look like it. Uh, Strategically, we had looked at a lot of different places to establish a foothold on that continent to start this fight. We know Normandy, we know a few of the others. Those became famous beachheads where ultimate tragedy and ultimate victory started. Some people never made it even onto the beach, and they gave a lot of sacrifices to do it. But it was a whole of government sacrifice because we knew that freedom demanded it. We know those beaches now. In the Q-Day world we're looking at, that same level of almost to the point of a weapon of mass destruction, a nuclear side of the house is usually is what people equate that to. That level of technology development, we don't know the beaches that we're going to have to fight for. We're starting to identify them, which ones are the most obvious choices to establish that so that we get ahead of this and prevent loss of life, catastrophic destruction to our information ecosystem, to how we spend money, to how we work with other nations. We don't know those beaches. We don't know where they're hitting. We know they're coming. We know it's important. Similar to the Y2K, we knew the date. It was obvious when December 31st finished. You were going to the year 2000, so we had a date for it. It's even more innocuous here. We don't have a date for when I'm going to have a cryptonically relevant quantum computer. And by the way, no one's going to announce it. It's going to happen, and it's going to fall on you, and you're going to have to react to it. So the more you have an opportunity to be ready for cryptography that's agile, that's resilient from the current systems we have to the next iteration of systems that are going to work post quantum compute, that's there to focus on an asymmetric key or to change society as we know it, because a quantum computer is going to do tremendously powerful things. In the hands of a bad actor, it's going to point to, I'm here to threaten you, and now you've got Q-Day. So when it comes to that offensive defense mindset, the D-Day world, before we established which beach and which one was most obvious, there were a few that stood out. Turns out Normandy was one of them. So we focused on that because we wanted to put a whole of government means to make sure that we were going after freedom and accomplishing the mission objectives that our nation and other nations we were working with needed to do against a known adversary that had declared, I'm a bad guy, I'm wearing the bad guy t-shirt, come after me. In this particular world, those bad guys aren't fully announcing themselves. They also aren't fully telling you what they're doing. And we certainly don't have an acknowledged date on when this is coming. So taking that in stride, recognizing that the adversary has a vote, these are some of the natural votes that they would cast that turns into a threat to us commercially, federally, for our freedoms. Those are the bounded edges we start framing our strategic planning on and our options. The neat part for QuSecure is we're resilient, we're agile, we're available right now. I'm not going to meet your needs with what I currently have, but I'm going to start to meet your needs with this, and you will see how you develop your concept of operation, your concept for employment, or your tactics, or your procedures, or your techniques to put those in place for what you own the mission of. That's what we're trying to do.
Well, Pete, one of the phrases you mentioned just a moment ago there that really struck with me was for D-Day, it was a whole of government sacrifice. And we knew the date and the time. It was of our choosing. And we planned vociferously to make sure that we were ready for that. Well, we don't know the date and time. The next D-Day or Q-Day will be like a light switch. and it could go off very rapidly. However, the government has already started to take steps to plan for that. There have been a lot of laws passed, the Endless Frontiers Act, the most recent National Security Memorandum in December signed. So the government recognizes that, and they are doing some planning. Can you tell a little bit about, from your perspective, heading up federal operations, how you see QSecure helping in that planning process and getting ready for the eventuality that certainly will come?
That's a great question. The beautiful part of being part of a big nation is there are a lot, what we call it, a melting pot. So not everything melts at the same temperature. Some early adopters recognize it and try to put things in place. As we get the National Security Memorandum 8, 10, the Office of Management and Budget requirement for post quantum communication and modernization protocols, and a direct move away from end of life systems and cryptography that's vulnerable, we see a path to this. Across that spectrum from A to Z, you'll have some first adopters that start to recognize and cut that path because they are going that direction. They've already been given a big vision, just like we had the big vision. Think about it this way. I loved your history lesson. We wanted to go west and own this continent, from sea to shining sea. We didn't own all the land yet. It was a tough road. We had to go across, quite frankly, wilderness to get there. In this particular world, we're in that wilderness of adoption. But there are a couple of pathfinders that go, I want that because I see that's where I'm going to thrive. So, what we have in the whole of government, we have some defense players going, oh, that will keep me more secure. I can use my current systems. I want to put that in place and mature it with you because I can use it. We see some insurance play that works with government and says, wow, our government's going to need this in the insurance side. Healthcare, oh, I need to protect my privately included information. I need to hold that secure because I don't want other people to know it. All of those are whole of government activities. We see first adopters leaning into this right now, seeing that threat, recognizing they want to put a foothold on this so they can make the most of protecting our nation and protecting what their assets are inside our nation. That's where we're going after those first adopters that recognize we've cast a big vision as a nation, from legislation to entire organizations inside of this leaning into quantum initiatives. So what I find is those players that are already leaning into that technology, we're going to resonate with you. And then we're going to let other people know that that same tuning fork that you hear is in you and you need it. And here's an easier adoption path that's backwards compatible and you can use it right away. So it is, most people, we're not just thinking defense. We're not just thinking national intelligence. I'm not just thinking State Department or labor or transportation. It's a whole of government. And so that's how big this task is. And I love it because we didn't sign up for something small.
Well, we certainly haven't signed up for something small, and we're reaching for some very, very big objectives. Way of life and national security and personal security are at the top of that list. One of the things that's helped us as an organization at QSecure to get there is we're a first mover. We're moving very, very quickly in this space, faster than others. We even were recognized by the government, getting what they called a CYBER Phase 3 award, which is a small business award that really has allowed us to be at the forefront of this journey. Can you tell us a little bit about the significance of the speed with which we move and that desire to be at the cutting edge as an innovative organization, and maybe how the CYBER Phase 3 is representative of that?
It's very representative of it. If you look at the number of players in this, I would say, technological path, there are very few in reality. And most of those are low technology readiness. A majority of those are hampered by the manufacturing readiness. So, winning a small business innovation research phase 3 in 5 months from when we stood up our federal operations team was a vote of confidence from our nation saying, we see a commercially viable product. Please spend some effort and time to mature that technology so I can use it in a classified environment or with a mission specific focus. We know that there's going to be a commercial adoption of this. I would like to take that, and I'm willing to spend money on it. I'm willing to give you protection around the data rights that you have so that you can mature this for our use. I have specific use cases for it. I'd like you to lean into those. That's great, because what you find is a lot of times you knock on the door of the federal government and they go, hello, we'll give you an answer here in about another year when the fiscal year timing works or when money's available or when we have a requirement for you. We barely knocked on the door, it came open, and they said, we need that. Look at all of these things that our nation is saying. We're recognizing the threat. Can you make this available for me? I need that scalpel. And we said, yeah. How sharp you need it? Where do you need it? How do I modify and get this to you so it's useful for you? And the fact that this company, small as it is, took that weight on and said, okay, we want to lean into this with you. That's a real service. And we also see that there's benefit to us profit wise. But as a first mover, it set us apart from an already fairly narrow field because we saw first adoption availability and we saw use, which means we're listening. You want to use this way? Okay, we can't give you that fully sharp scalpel right now. As a matter of fact, it may just be a butter knife with one edge a little bit sharp, but it's reaching what you're asking. That willingness to listen and lean into what our nation needs is a real joy to be a part of.
Well, Pete Shadowford, thank you very much for joining us today on Fireside Chats. We really appreciate your perspective, your leadership, and your service for the country. And with that, we will sign off. But I want to remind everybody to go to LinkedIn and to YouTube to follow us on our social channels. Visit our website to learn more about QuSecure, what we do, and how we're trying to make the country and our society a safer place. Till next time, this is Paul Fugner for Fireside Chats and QuSecure. Thank you, everybody.
Catch new episodes every other week. Follow QSecure Fireside Chats on YouTube and all major podcast streaming platforms.